Good morning, good afternoon, good morning, everybody. No, I have a feeling that there's going to be lots and lots of people on this, so I apologise. I'm going to turn the doorbell off. I'm going to mute everybody on entry.
Hey, Carla.
Hello, hello. This seems to be a very popular topic right now, so
I never know why.
yes. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to explain to you a few things first, because there's unbelievably there are 250 people registered for this. So I just want to invite
Alison, I'd love to.
Yeah.
Okay, you too.
Yeah. So what I'm going to ask you all to do is, unless you're speaking, we're going to mute everybody.
Thank you very much. See you Monday. Bye.
And so it's just going to be me talking, because I'm trying to record this for requests for people. But if you have questions, you can unmute yourself. And I also have the lovely Leisa Parker, who who will join us shortly. And Leisa is going to take you all through the movement component. How we make this work smoothly is also going to be an interesting little balance. I'm just going to try and speak more loudly for you. I'm not the most noisy person normally. So if I'm hoping to speak as loudly as I can, microphone up. Okay. So what I've done for all of you is I've written quite extensive notes. And what I will do is after this, hopefully the recording will work. I will then share with you the notes and the recording so that works, okay? So let's hopefully get this working. So I'm assuming for all of you, this is a very big issue. And if anything distresses you, please say so. But what the purpose of this here today is about, first of all, understanding what is stress and what is general adaptation syndrome, and how that impacts on your stress and immune system, and then for the movement class, how we can take some strategies to work that through. So first of all, I probably don't need to explain to anybody what stress is. I believe the new definition is 2020. Okay. So,
Thanks.
yeah, it is. It's a big year.
Wieso habe ich keinen Ton jetzt?
Remember, I've tried to mute you all. So if you've unmuted yourself, just try to keep it there. So basically what happens is stress, like any response in our body, has to have an event, and it's a stimulus, and it causes a biochemical response within our body. Now, most of you probably understand the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. But I'm just going to go over that a little bit for you so that we can understand that. And we're also going to understand the stages of the general adaptation syndrome. Okay. So the first part of what we're talking about is what happens when we respond to stress. And when we have a stressful event, our body has to deal with it. Now, most of you have heard of the fight and flight response, or another term that's often used is friend and bend. Now, generally what that means is that when we have an event, our body starts to pump out adrenaline. Our body changes something called on our pituitary hormone axis. And that results in us changing our digestive system, our vision. So our vision will narrow. our hearing becomes much more attuned to very specific voice sounds. And all of the blood, not all, but a large percentage of our blood goes from our core to our periphery. And the reason being is that in the periphery, this allows us to run and to flee from things. Now, ideally, we will only be in this fight stage for a very short period of time. The word friend and bend is used to describe women more so than men. Now, that's but largely because we often hear the term flight and flight, and it's the way women respond to stress is sometimes seen to be quite different to the way men. There's still the same hormonal response, but women tend to see what the event is and then try and work out what was going on. Now, this sometimes can work, but could also mean that you end up in very stressful events for longer periods of time. Now, in 2020, we haven't had just one event. The whole year, let's face it, has been one big stress event. And as a result, instead of just dealing with stress for a short period of time and moving on, we are dealing with stress for what's called a chronic period of time. And some of you are like going, Carla, this is obvious. We know this. I get it. Okay. Now, the thing is, and in your notes, you'll read about it a bit more, is a process called adaptive syndrome. Is normally you'll have your stress event, our body then responds, clears out the stress event, and we get back to homeostasis. Now, what happens when we have long-term stress, like we are seeing at the moment, is we go through the alarm state, which is this friend or bend or fight and flight. And then our body goes through the resistance stage, in which we try to mop up all the hormones, mop up everything that's causing the stress or response event. And this means that our body is trying to use what's called your parasympathetic nervous system to calm you down. Now, as with all resistance, it can only happen for a short period of time. And if something goes on for far too long, we start to deplete our resources. And that depletion is what we call exhaustion. And I know a lot of you are going, Carla, we know this, or I've heard this term before. But it is at the exhaustion stage that I would say most people I have dealt with at the moment are at. We're all, and probably you poor people in Victoria, you are probably beyond exhaustion, to be honest. Exhaustion is a point in which we have very few resources left, either financially, emotionally, but also within our body. And it's when we start to get sick, and really sick. Not just from COVID-19, but from a whole heap of other things. So what I'd like us to do is first of all check in about our immune system, what that means and how stress affects that. And then Leisa is going to take you through a nice movement process. So has anybody got any questions right now that I need to know so far? You're all fine? This is such a bizarre thing. So I'll turn your microphone on if you have any questions. Okay. So let's talk about the immune system first. Okay. So in your immune system, we have two things. We have our, and I'm just trying to bring this up for you now so that you can see, and I of course can't do that, so let's not worry. The immune system has two phases. We have your adaptive and your innate immune system. Okay, so let's start with the innate. Our innate immune system are things like our skin, our mucus. So our skin and our mucus are things that keep infection out. Okay, so if you have a cut on your body, that's how the infection gets in. But there are other parts of our innate system. There's the mucus in our lungs, in our throat. And if you read a little bit about COVID-19, some of you may have heard of this disease, some may not. Really what happens is it's not the virus that is affecting people or killing people. It's the immune system response that is affecting people. So you hear about people having their lungs infected with too much fluid or too much, or scarring as a result. And this is what happens with our immune system. It's great. Our innate immune system is pretty effective. It comes in and it comes and helps us no matter what. But our adaptive immune system is the other thing, is much more targeted. But let's just talk a little bit more about your innate immune system first, okay? So we've got it that the innate immune system has your skin and your mucus. It also has a number of cells that come in and help us, and also a process called inflammation, okay? So inflammation is what happens when you have an infection. We end up having a fever response. The body pumps out glucocorticosteroids, so hard saying that word, and that is what pumps out when we're in stress as well, okay? And when we're in stress, it has all of those impacts that we were talking about with earlier, the stress response. Your digestive system slows down, the blood goes from the periphery, your eyesight becomes more narrow, all of those things. Now, in the inflammatory response, all of those things are happening as well, but we have heat and fever, and we have all of those chemicals around dealing with that infection. So it's one of the reasons why, you know, you get your temperature checked to see if you're infected or you've got that fever. Now, the thing about that inflammatory response, it's actually a good thing. It says that, you know, your immune system is working. Problem is when the inflammation goes on for too long. And that inflammation can be a response because of the infection, but it also can be a response because of the glucocorticosteroids that you're pumping out because of stress. And when we're pumping out too much of those steroids over a lot, and I'll just call them steroids, it's not kind of the right word, but we'll just use that. When we're pumping that out for a long period of time, it has impacts on the last stage of our innate immune system. So remember, we had skin and mucus, we had inflammation, the inflammatory response, and the third part is we have our white blood cells. And we have something called the killer cells. Okay, so white blood cells are your lymphocytes, neutrophils, all of these things that the blood pumps in, tests it, fights infection. We all know, you know, you go to have a blood test when you're sick and the white blood cell comes back and you know what's going on. Now, we also have what's called natural killer cells. Now, your natural killer cells, and some of you may have heard me say this before, but I always think of it as Quentin Tarantino cells, okay? They come in, they see an infection, or it's not the infection that they deal with, it's actually the mutations in your cells. Okay, so let me explain that. So our cells are constantly reproducing themselves, constantly making new cells. But when they do that, what happens is sometimes there's a little defect or a mutation that happens. What happens with our natural killer cells is that they pick up those mutations and they eliminate them. It goes in, identifies that there's something wrong, and the body then, this chemical process called phagocytosis. In other words, it's like Pac-Man. It comes in, sees the cell, this is not a good cell, we've got to get rid of this. And so the body pumps it, tags it, bags it, and ships it out for your lymphatic system. But the problem is, if this mutation's not picked up by the natural killer cells, these are the mutations that go on to cause things like cancer, okay? So what happens is, I need to first of all check it. Anyone some questions so far? I know there's lots of blah, blah. Everyone's okay? No questions so far? Okay. So what happens is, when we're sick or when we're highly stressed, the glucocorticosteroids come in and they kill off your natural killer cells, okay? So what happens is our body's ability to detect mutations in the cells becomes a problem. Okay. And it is one of the reasons why over long periods of time of exposure to huge levels of stress, people start to develop cancers or are more likely to develop cancers. Now, I've put in your notes that you will get eventually when I work out how to do this recording thing, is a reference list of some of the places so that you can check and read up about some of these if you want to learn more. But so we identify now that if you've had long periods of stress, you're going to start to see cancers starting to pop up. If you have long periods of stress, your body's T helper cells, so we have something called Th1 and Th2 helper cells. Those helper cells end up having mutations and problems, and they start to develop or contribute to the development of autoimmune diseases. Okay, so your Th1 helper cells, and I'm sorry, it's so technical, but the Th1 helper cells are the sorts of diseases that you see where it's attacking one sort of part of your body, like rheumatoid arthritis, Sjogren's syndrome, some of those diseases that have one system being affected. Your Th2 helper cells are when you start to see systemic conditions. So for instance, like systemic conditions like scleroderma, systemic lupus. So both of these conditions can start to develop, and they're part of what happens or can be more susceptible for people because of long-term stress. And you're like going, great, Carla, we're all going to get sick. Well, yes, the reason why I'm talking about this is if we don't manage our chronic stress, and I know it sounds so easy, but if we can't manage that, we start to see our clients coming in with very, very severe illnesses or the development of these illnesses. Now, I observed this in my clients after the floods in Queensland in 2010, 2011. And you would see also this was what happened in the US after 9/11. You know, there was one event, but it was such a massive event of chronic and ongoing stress for long periods of time. People started to become susceptible to much greater diseases at a later period of time. And you're looking at around 6 to 7 months, okay, after the event and ongoing periods of stress that your body really is getting to this exhausted stage that we talked about in the generalized adaptive syndrome. It would have been easier if I had my notes up for you, but it's okay. So are there any questions so far? Okay, sorry, someone's just asked the questions, so let me. Yes, so Rob was asking about what happens with what is cortisol and what's that, and how that impacts. So the answer is that cortisol is part of that resistance stage that I was talking about. So you know how I was saying that there's our alarm stage where we pump out the adrenaline. The resistance stage is where the body pumps out the cortisol to try and absorb some of the adrenaline, and it's part of your parasympathetic response to stress. And what happens is that our body can only pump out so much of this for a period of time. And when the stress is prolonged, that's when you end up in this exhausted stage. Now, this is what's referred to by some people as adrenal exhaustion. So that's when the cortisol is happening for too long. But the psychologists talk about it from also the point of view of emotional exhaustion. And sometimes it's really hard to identify what it is that's actually happening. But it is psychological, it is physiological as well, and emotional. And in really prolonged periods of stress, it can cause death. I know it sounds really, you know, like it can cause people to lose their appetite. Their health is compromised because their immune system is suppressed. So it can interfere with all of your hormonal cycles as well. So somebody was saying, you know, asking here is, well, does this interfere with people's ability to get pregnant? Well, yeah, it can, because remember, this is part of your hormonal axis. It starts with your pituitary system. It starts with your hypothalamus, goes to your pituitary system, and then it goes into your adrenal system. That's what we call the HPA axis. And really the hypothalamus and the pituitary are where all your hormones are sort of regulated, okay? So if you've had a prolonged period of stress that your entire hormonal system is dysregulated, pregnancy is just one of those hormonal responses that will be interfered with, okay? So the first thing we have to think about from all of this process is, well, how do we calm down stress? And, you know, I think all of us are thinking, well, let's just go straight to 2021. But sadly, just going to 2021 is probably not going to be the answer. It might, you know, it would be nice to put 1 year behind, but I think we all in our heart of hearts know that we're here for a little bit longer. So what we need to be looking at are what are the consequences on our body from stress. As I say, vision, hearing, breath, our diaphragm we don't breathe as much. Our vagus nerve isn't working as well. So we start to end up with all of the accessory breath patterns. You're thinking of everything that's happening in your neck and your pets. Your diaphragm's not working as well. Your digestive system's not working as well, so you're not getting your right nutrients. And your core's just not working. So one of the things that we want to be looking at as part of helping to calm the digestive system, calm the nervous system, is bringing our awareness to breath. And look, we're Pilates teachers. We know this. And, you know, it was interesting as I was listening to a podcast today. Some of you might listen to podcasts. I was listening to one by James Nestor as a journalist, and he's written a book recently about breath and just how it calms and regulates people. So you might want to have a listen to that podcast. But what Leisa is going to do, and I've just got to find, Leisa, can you pipe yourself up so that I can get you to join? I don't know how to do this.
Yeah,
You're here?
Yeah.
Okay, where are you? I find you somewhere.
On my screen, I'm right next to you.
On your screen. Okay, let me see. So what Lisa's going to do is she's going to take you through a nice, beautiful movement process. If I can find you, Leisa. I know on your screen you're right next to me. God, I hate technology. And let's face it, for all of us, this is what we're all facing. There's no day-to-day normality for any of us. We're all just working through this. So Leisa, once I pin you, because you're much prettier than I am, and and much more calming in your voice as we do this. So how do we find you, Leisa? Why don't I try it this way?
I won't help you, Carla, sorry.
If anybody knows how to do this. I did warn everybody that technology wasn't my thing. Do
you mind if I just ask a question?
Ask.
You briefly just passed over something then where you were talking about the symptoms of the elongated exposure to stress.
Yes.
And you briefly said these words, and your core's just not working.
Oh, yes. Okay. And that's, so that's part of what's happening when all the blood is actually going away from your core. It is actually the stress response in that alert stage actually is encouraging everything to go to your periphery. So you start, this is, you know, it makes, I know it sounds like I just pumped over that, but that is actually what you start to see is people can't work in their core because it's all there you are, Lisa. It's all the blood isn't there, and it's about bringing it back to your main digestive systems. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And it might make more sense when I've just pinned Lisa. Thank you, Donna. I just had to find her on the thing. It might make more sense to once you see the notes, and also just have a think about some of those things. And I think, I'm trying to be very quick in the explanations that I'm giving to you, because I think some of the stuff we know, some of the stuff we don't. And I've done a blog, it's about 8 pages for you. And it's put a fair bit of detail in there. So hopefully that will be a starting point. And then we can talk about more ideas later too, if that's okay. Does that answer your question?
It definitely uncovers more. Like you just brushed over it and I was like, I feel like I just missed the step where you elaborated on that because you were talking about inflammation and I wasn't sure if you were talking about digestion as being the inflammatory marker for why the core wasn't working.
No, it's the actual adrenal hormone response, which changes the way your blood pressure, your blood flow happens. So it changes the way your heart rate goes and it encourages greater blood flow to your periphery.
Perfect, Carla. I look forward to reading the blog.
Yeah, I know. And I could probably write another 30 pages. I'm sorry.
Please do.
Oh yeah, in my spare time. No, I will. I'll share quite a few little series on this because I think it is such an important issue for us all. But I think Lisa's stuff is far more important now for you all so that we can move and actually bring us into a thing. So I'm going to turn my thing off and Lisa, can you blab away?
Sure. Hello, everyone. It's nice to see so many people. So we're going to do a bit of movement exploration. So it's an exploration. Doesn't mean it's the right way. If you feel more comfortable, you can turn your videos off. I'm going to keep mine on so you can check in with me. But what I'm doing is my interpretation of what I'm saying. So it's not the right way either. It's just my way. So I really encourage you to open yourself up to going with whatever feels right for you. There is lots going on at the moment. There is, it's that sense that the ground underneath us is a little bit unsteady. It's not real stable. So I'm going to do a bit of an exploration on the floor, lying on the floor, following our breath and perhaps how our breath can move our body. It's really important to check in with yourself, and if you're feeling uncomfortable in any way, just roll to your side and take a nap. You can hear what I say, or you can just put something else in your ears and you can just take a rest. So for some people, this might be really quite relaxing. For other people, it might not be. So it really depends on what's happening in everyone's nervous systems, how you're feeling in this moment. So I really open you up to following your impulse of what feels good for you and looking after yourself. So if you can take your time to find a space that you feel comfortable, we will be lying, there's going to be a lot of internal sort of movement to start off with. So we are going to seemingly be quite still, even though there's going to be a bit going on. So if you can find support for yourself. So if you need pillows, bolsters, if you're feeling cool, please grab a blanket. And I'll just take your time to do that. So potter around, get yourself comfortable. And we're going to end up landing on our backs, lying on our backs, legs extended, if that's okay for your back, and arms just out by your side. So there's so many things that I could have shared today. it's endless. And if I get started, we could be here for the rest of the weekend. So I chose breath just because it's something that is certain. It's something that it happens without us needing to try. Doesn't mean it's always the best quality, but it's always happening. So whether it's a full breath or a shallow breath, it's a certain thing that we're going to be breathing. So that's why I've chosen to move with the breath. And I've chosen to be on the floor because the ground is something else that's certain. We know that the ground is going to be there. So we've got two certain things. Well, there's gravity as well. There's many certain things, but we're just going to focus on what's here in this moment and working well. So really take your time to find a place that feels comfortable for you and adjust yourself. If you need a little bit more support in certain areas, please take your time to find that, adjust your body. If there's too much noise for you, can you close a door? So just really take your time to find a space that feels good for you in this moment. And I often think of the snow domes that get shaken up. So just imagine you're the snow dome that's been shaken up, and then someone's just placed you down on a table, a bench, or the floor. And just allowing all those little snowflakes to settle. And just noticing what your experience of that settling is. It doesn't need to be anything other than what's happening now. So noticing what it feels like to have the ground underneath you, to have the snow dome that is you to settle, and just noticing your experience of that settle. And it may be pleasant or it may be unpleasant. And feeling that gentle blanket of gravity that comes down to allow us to feel the support of the floor underneath us. Perhaps you can start to become aware of the part of your body that feels most supported by the floor underneath you. How do you experience this area of more support? It might be your shoulders, your head, your pelvis, your feet. Just taking your awareness to this space that feels most supported in this moment. And what's the quality of that support? Is it heavy? Is it warm? Is it a large space? Maybe you notice some tingling or some buzzing. Just taking your awareness to this place that feels most supported in this moment. And it can be interesting to notice as you spend time in this place of more support, what else do you start to notice in your body? What else becomes into your awareness? And just taking your time to notice whatever might be there right now. Noticing if there's anything you may need now that you've settled a little bit to allow you to be more comfortable, adjusting yourself, doing whatever you may need to do.
And then just gently checking in with your body and seeing if there's anything that you may be holding on to that you don't need to in this moment. And maybe you do need to hold on to a certain area, and that's okay. But is there any tension in your body that you don't need to be holding on to in this moment? And what would it be like just to allow it to be a bit softer? And then just noticing your inhale. What tells you in this moment that you're breathing in? Where does your inhale start? Do you notice it first in the chest, in your nose, in your belly? Where do you first know that you're breathing in? There's no right answer, it's just what you notice now. And just checking in the quality of your inhale. Does it feel shallow? Does it feel full? Does it feel restricted? Does it feel nice? Is there a gentle flow to it? And I really encourage you not to take full deep breaths, but just allow your breath to be easy and as it is. Sometimes when we push too hard, there becomes more resistance. So just allowing whatever to be there. And now with gentle direction, and I really encourage you to be gentle and not forcing. What would we like to allow the breath to come in through your nose and allow it to gently cool to the back of the throat, and then just gently start to travel down your spine towards your pelvis. And just breathing out however you breathe out. So allowing the inhale to come in through the nose, traveling down the spine, and just noticing how far it goes at the moment. It may not reach the pelvis, and that's okay. Because we're not looking for full deep breaths, we're looking for easy breaths. So breathing in through the nose, allowing the breath to travel down the spine towards the pelvis. And then just allowing the breath to leave the body however it does. Imagine the breath trickling down the spine, swerving it around the vertebrae, traveling towards the pelvic bowl. If the capacity is there, feeling the breath fill the pelvic bowl. And it can be interesting to notice, is there a catching or a tension at any point of the breath? Is there some part of the body that starts to hold? And if you find you're holding, can you do less? What would it be like to do less? And just gently allowing the energy of the breath to travel down the spine into the pelvis. Knowing that our breath comes in and out of our lungs, but we can choose to feel our breath in any part of the body. And so continuing to feel the inhale travel through the nose, kind of pulls into the back of the throat as it travels then down the spine into the pelvis. And then as you exhale, what would it be like to feel the breath then travel back up the spine, tickling in around the spine, traveling all the way back up and out through your mouth. So there's the drawing in of the breath through the nose, trickling down the spine into the pelvis, where it may pause just for a moment before there's that drawing back up the spine, all the way up through and out the mouth. And if the breath isn't traveling the whole way down, it's okay. Just allowing the breath to go where it feels comfortable, where you don't need to try hard, where you can just be easy. So starting to feel the breath travel in, tickling the spine as far as it can go down, allowing it to pause just for that moment before then it starts to tickle and trickle back up the spine and out through the mouth. And perhaps you can start to feel this gentle ebb and flow, and that really slight pause at the top and the bottom of the breath. And just bring awareness to any sort of catching, tension, holding within that breath. And if you notice there is tension, and you bring curiosity around doing less, what would it be like to do less? And then if it feels okay for you, what would it be like to allow the inhale to travel in through the nose, trickle down the spine into the pelvis, and start to trickle down the legs towards the feet into the toes. And it may not make it to the toes the first time, so being really gentle with how far or it might go or not go. And then feeling the drawing up through the bottom of the feet as the breath starts to leave the body, so that it comes up through the feet, traveling back up the legs, through the pelvis, along the spine and out through the mouth. So the breath's coming in through the nose, gently traveling down the spine, into the pelvis, down into the legs, traveling into the toes, feeling the toes with your inhale, and then feeling that really gentle drawing up through the arches of the feet, up through the legs, through the pelvis, up the spine and out through the mouth. And you may or may not notice there's some slight movement in the inhale. And if it feels okay, it's just an invitation. Or you could imagine the movement. In the inhale, there's that gentle expansion, extension of the body. So there's that gentle opening up as you inhale down the spine into the pelvis, the opening of the front of you, traveling into the legs. And perhaps you can feel your toes extend and expand a little bit with the inhale. So you're feeling yourself open up with the inhale. Feeling that gentle pause before there's the exhale and the drawing in of the body. Energy coming up through the feet. The breath traveling up the legs, up the spine. And there's gentle curling in as the breath comes out through the mouth. So if it feels okay, you can play with that very gentle extension, expansion on the inhale. Feeling the spine open up. Feeling your toes expand. You might feel your femurs roll out and feeling that drawing up through the arches, allowing the body to curl in, the spine to curl ever so slightly as the breath comes back up and out through your mouth. And if it feels okay, you can allow the breath to continue down into your feet, that gentle opening, the expanding. And then what would it be like to allow the breath, the inhale, to travel into the arms, into the hands, into the fingers. So you're inhaling, opening your chest, your arms, your fingers, allowing the breath to fill every part of the fingertips. And then feeling the exhale draw through the palms, the curling in of the fingers, the curling in of the shoulders, as the breath travels all the way back up and out. So just in your own time, in your own breath, remembering it's not how deep you can breathe, but how easy you can breathe. Allowing your breath to move your body rather than your body moving the breath. So feeling the breath traveling through the nose, down the spine into the arms, all the way to the fingertips. Feeling the chest open. Feeling all the vertebrae open, femurs spiral, toes open. And then feeling the exhale draw up through the arches, all the way back up the legs, feeling the body curl in that little bit as you breathe up and out through the mouth. Maybe you can notice then your head maybe tilts back a little bit as you open yourself up for life, for inhale. And then feeling everything kind of draw in on the exhale. And again, you're just going at your own pace. If you find there's too much tension, then you do less. And what's your experience of this breath? Does it make sense? Is it confusing? Is it pleasant, unpleasant? Just notice what your experience is in this moment, without judging. It is what it is. Just allowing the breath to travel to all parts, feeling that gentle opening, the expansion of the inhale, and that drawing, curling in of the exhale, the flexion. And you may or may not notice that really slight pause at the top of the breath. So much happens in that pause. Is there tension in the pause? Is there discomfort in the pause? Is there ease in the pause? Just allowing the ebb and flow of the breath to curl and expand your body. And then just pause completely, just forget everything I've just said, and check in with the ground again. Check into the support of the ground. Is it different in any way? Is there more of you on the ground than there was before? Less? Are you noticing some tingling, some warmth within your body? And is that pleasant or unpleasant? Just really noticing what's in your experience in this moment. How's the quality of your breath without directing it anywhere? Is it the same? Is it different? And just noticing your experience of the longer pause. Is it uncomfortable? Is it welcomed? What happens with your breath? And then what would it be like again to bring your awareness back to your breath, letting your breath travel in through your nose, down your spine, into your arms, into your legs, expanding you. And then feeling the drawing in and the curling in as the exhale happens. And as you curl in, you draw yourself towards one side. And you kind of curl into a ball on one side as you exhale. And then as you feel the inhale start to expand your body, your arms and legs start to expand out again. And you may draw towards the center again. So you're back onto your back. Arms may be above your head now or not. Feeling that pause before the exhale comes and curls you to the side again. Maybe the same side, it may be the opposite side, it doesn't matter. So now we're exploring the breath curling us from the side back to the back and then back to the side. So feeling the inhale expand you out, open you up for new life, for breath. And then feeling the curling in of the exhale as it draws up through your feet, back up your legs, up the spine as it comes through your palms and curls you to one side into a little ball for the exhale. And I'm curious, are you able to sense that your breath starts before the movement starts? Can you allow the breath to move your body? As you expand out, allowing the breath to roll you back onto your back, filling yourself with breath, and then feeling the breath leave the body up through the feet, through the palms, up the arms, the legs, all the way back out through the mouth as it draws you to one side. Noticing the pause before the vacuum of the inhale starts again to expand the body. Open you up and draw you to the other side or the same side. So there's no rules here. Feet don't need to stay on the ground. Arms don't need to stay connected. I encourage you to allow the breath to move your body however the body wants to be moved. And you're doing it perfectly. There's no right way to notice your breath. You're doing it just perfectly. Allowing the inhale to reach fingers, toes, allowing it to fill you all the way to your edges. And then feeling the drawing in and the curling as the breath leaves the body, making way for something new. And becoming really curious of your experience. Is there tension? Is there catching at certain points? What's it like to notice the pause at the top of the breath and the bottom of the breath? How does your body move? How does your body respond? Are you wondering if you're doing it right? You're doing it really, really well. So no rules, just allowing the breath to travel into the body, expanding the body, extending the body. Feeling the breath leave the body, leave the toes, the fingers, drawing all the way back in and curling you in. Noticing the quality of your movements, quality of your breath. And then allowing yourself to land in a place of ease. Where is that? On your back again? Is that on one side? Just letting yourself land. Follow the impulse and the intelligence of your body of where and what's most comfortable for you to land. And again, just bring your awareness to the surface underneath you. What's supporting you? What's holding you? And just allowing the breath to be as it is. Noticing if there's a difference in the quality of your breath now than perhaps there was before. Is there a difference in the quality of your body than there was before? And I encourage you to take time to notice what those differences may be. Also noticing if there's no difference, just noticing whatever's there. I'm going to be curious to notice if there's any tingling, warmth, any colours, any buzzing, any images. Just noticing what you notice in your experience in this moment. How may you feel different now to before we all started? The connection with each other, the connection as a community. Just taking a moment to thank yourself for showing up. Thank Carla for giving us this opportunity, for Carla for sharing her knowledge with us, her time, her amazingness. And I thank you with my heart for allowing me to share some of myself with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Leisa. Thank you. And I know everybody's probably feeling very calm now, so I'm not going to talk too much. Just want you to all breathe as much as you can. And when you wake up and go around, stop and just take the time to observe a single vision or a sound as well. just observe how maybe you can hear something a little bit better or see something a little bit better. Remember when we were talking about the nervous system, we talked about how we start to become very focused on one thing. And it's sometimes you might not be noticing things in your periphery, or you might not be hearing things properly, only just a small amount. My suggestion is now is to just, once you're ready to move, go out and just spend a little bit of time somewhere where you can be calm and allow your eyes to wander around, allow your head to listen to many different sounds and see if you can open out your periphery. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hopefully download this and upload this into a Vimeo account. Once that's done, I will then put that into the blog and hopefully share that with everybody through both the APMA and the PAA, and I thank them very much for helping us organise this. And I'll also put that on social media. I also have one pre-recorded video where I've taken you through some more single movements as well, so that hopefully everybody can feel a little bit calmer and hopefully we can all get through 2020. Thank you so much, Leisa. And thank you, everybody.
Take care, everyone.
Take care. Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.